The Cervantes issued their ultimatum: submit or die. Jack would have to prove humanity's worth, and why they shouldn't be killed, so he proposed dangerous war games to prove humanity's worth. Failure meant annihilation of the human race. Could Jack reveal the powerful potential within humankind? Time ticked down as he rallied the crew of the Sovereign, reminding them that humanity's survival depended on their success. Jack stared at the fake sky. Its blue glowed with weird colors. This wasn't Earth. His squad stood among fake ruins of New York City. Now the ruins were a battlefield. Jack clicked his radio twice, the signal to move out. "Hit and run! We're ghosts here," Jack ordered. His voice was firm. They crept through crumbling buildings. Steps were silent on the dusty ground. Enemy drones fired bursts. Amy dashed out. She dragged the wounded behind a bus. The bus became a medical station. She bandaged fast. Her hands moved fast like a machine, vital, deliberate. "Stay down," she yelled over the noise. She wrapped Martinez's bullet wound. Simon crouched by a downed drone. His hands worked the hacking device. Sparks flew. He crossed wires and typed codes. A beep meant success. The drone whirred back to life, now under Simon's control. "Fight yourself," Simon grinned. The drone rose and fired on its old allies. The drones evolved each time the squad scored. Their tactics changed fast. Jack saw it happen in real time. The AI was tough. Jack huddled the squad in a ruined lobby, backs to broken windows. His mind raced. "Think smarter, not harder. Simon, jam their comms. Amy, keep us moving, can't stay still." They flowed from cover to cover, barely ahead of the drones. Jack's sweat mixed with dirt on his face, eyes locked on the drones' patterns. Their chance came. Adrenaline fueled their sprint across the shattered streets, diving into the safety zone just before the drones swarmed their last position. The fake city dissolved to reveal the metal walls. A Cervantes spoke coldly over the comms. "Impressive, Colonel Ransom. Your survival instincts, notable, but harder trials are coming." Cheers erupted. The thrill of victory shone in tired smiles. "We held ground," Jack said, cutting through the noise. "But they're right. This is just the start. Stay sharp." He allowed himself a quick smile. Then his eyes went back to the tactics display. His mind planned the next battle. The ship cut through the black sky dotted with stars. Ahead loomed an asteroid. But this wasn't just a rock. It was a fortress. Jack gripped his chair, staring at the screen. Minds pulsed with deadly energy, forming a web to trap them. "Shield status!" Jack barked at Simon, eyes locked on the screen. Simon's fingers danced over the console. Clicks and taps filled the tense bridge. "Almost got it. There?" One of the enemy shields on the screen flickered and died. "Boarding now!" Amy's voice rang in Jack's helmet. Jack floated through the hatch with his team behind him. Magnetic boots thudded onto the asteroid's surface. Grappling hooks pulled them forward through the void. No resistance met them outside. The real fight was inside. Blasted doors led them in. Weightlessness ended as artificial gravity took over. Shadows hid unseen threats. Any corner might conceal a hidden turret. The squad moved as one, a lethal dance. Boots clanked down metal halls with guns ready. Simon gave locations. Amy directed the assault. Fast, brutal firefights echoed through the corridors. A scream, then red mist filled the air. "Medic!" But Amy already pulled the man back, sealing his wounds. Jack pressed forward. He pushed a hesitant private down the corridor. "Move!" They needed momentum. An explosion rocked the hall, raining debris. Another scream cut short. Jack didn't look back. Every step was for those who could still walk. The final door. Jack set the charges, and they braced. The explosion blew it inward. They rushed in, sweeping with swift precision. Alien voices crackled over the comms. Humans, you show unexpected resolve. They had won. But Jack felt the weight of victory. His eyes passed over the living and those now gone. We don't kill humans, he whispered as they headed back. The air seared our lungs. Each breath was like sucking exhaust. We geared up, filters cranked high. Still, they strained against the gunk outside. "Check the seals, Amy!" Jack yelled over the hiss of acid rain. She moved fast, soldier to soldier, inspecting. Sweat rolled off her face as she focused. My helmet fogged up. The jungle swirled with colors too bright. Trees had spikes. The ground sizzled where the rain hit. We pushed on. "Simon, readings!" Jack's order crackled static. Simon smacked his busted scanner. "This damn planet's scrambling it!" Code flickered, then died. Things lurked, shadows darted between the trees. We felt watched. A shriek split the humid air. It hit Thompson first, shredding his suit. Claws and teeth tore with a snarl. Amy slapped on a patch, fingers working fast, face calm. "You'll be okay. Hold still." Another creature lunged. We fired. It dropped, but not before shredding Singh's arm. Amy foamed the gash while he winced silent, eyes on Jack. I saw the doubt in their stares, each brush with death, chipped at their trust. Jack met my gaze and nodded once. He knew his team teetered. That night we huddled in a hollow tree. Howls filled the dark. "Jack, how much more?" Simon's frustration came through static. "We're hurting, Jack," Amy admitted, hands busy with medical supplies. Jack stood to face them. "One more time, trust me. We need to show we can survive." One by one they nodded. We weren't done. Dawn came. The rain stopped, but fog clung tight, burning exposed skin. We moved, watching each other's backs. Each step was agony as our boots stuck to the melted ground. "Extraction ahead!" Simon shouted, voice ragged but clear. We burst into the clearing. Jack signaled the sky. The ship dropped down, hatch opening wide. I looked back at the cruel planet as we boarded. It had tested and scarred us. Inside, the Cervantes' cold voice filled the ship. "You survived, humans, but consider the cost." We sat in silence. Our victory felt empty. Exhaustion and resentment showed on our faces. Jack stared at the metal walls, haunted. Guiding our survival weighed heavy. He had trusted in the human spirit, but now even that seemed crushed. "We don't kill humans," he repeated to himself, as if trying to hold on to the creed that had carried us this far. But would it carry us through what was to come? We lined up with steel in our eyes and weapons in hands. The fake ground below us gave and felt spongy like earth. Jack led us. Lines of determination marked his face. The Cervantes soldiers moved slick and quick, like they were the air itself. We stomped and struggled, always a half step behind them. The fight started with a distant boom that echoed off nothing, just open space. "Aim at their joints!" Jack barked out. He ducked, barely missing a bright blast that burned the ground next to him. "You're pushing too hard, Jack!" Amy shouted over the constant gunfire. Her voice shook with fear. Simon glanced at her. His eyes showed he shared her concern, but he said nothing. He focused on aiming his shaky shots. The enemy leapt and spun, untouched. We couldn't cross the wide gap between their grace and our strength. Our casualties climbed with each pulse. We scrambled and dove, a sweaty mess of breath. Then a loud, sudden hit ripped through our line. Simon slammed into the ground. The thud cut through everything. Jack froze. The world narrowed down. "Cover me!" he screamed. He leaped for Simon, sliding behind a barricade. Bursts of energy barely missed him. Blood and grit mixed on Simon's suit as Jack grabbed him. Jack heaved his friend's body onto his shoulder. Each step pounded with purpose and Simon's weight. Amy's hands were already reaching when Jack brought Simon to her. Her movements worked quick and precise, desperate. She sealed Simon's wounds with swift pressure. "Stay with me, Simon," she whispered. her focus sharpened to a razor's edge. Around them, the air cracked with enemy fire. Each blast reminded them of their desperate plight. But in that moment, the battle's fury softened. Jack watched Amy working to save Simon. Jack watched Simon's chest rise and fall. Brief, sweet relief bloomed in Jack's chest. Not all was lost. "We push on," Jack said, more to himself than the others. He looked each squad member in the eye. His voice carried command and the sacrifice of their fight. The fake world around us flickered as we emerged, battered but unbroken. The Cervantes' cold voice acknowledged our win, but its words meant nothing against our heavy breaths and scarred Simon, alive but hurt. The crew gathered silently. Unspoken doubts filled the space between us. We had won, but at what cost? Jack's eyes stayed on his team, on the sacrifice in each face. The smell of burnt equipment and faint fear hung thick in the air. Murmurs wove together as we questioned our purpose. "Is it worth it?" the whispers asked. The walls absorbed the words and gave no answer. The metal door shut with a hiss after Jack entered. The room was dim except for a few panels glowing weak green on the walls. Amy and Simon sat at the small table. They looked up as Jack came in, worry on their faces. Jack's boots echoed on the metal floor. "We need to talk," Jack said. The weight of command pressed on him. Amy and Simon glanced at each other, concerned. "You've seen the losses," Jack said. He stood straight, hands flat on the cold table. "If we lose the next game, I'll give myself to the Cervantes." Amy's eyes went wide. "No, Jack. We can't let you do that." Simon slammed his hand down. "You're the heart of this team. We won't agree to this." Jack shook his head. It might be the only way. They argued back and forth, voices echoing in the tense room. They knew the cost, the sacrifice ahead. The fifth game was different than the others. Jack stood before a hologram display stretching across the dark room. The Cervantes strategist appeared opposite, a silhouette against flashing galaxies at war. Jack touched the display. Virtual ships moved through a star system, taking defense positions. His focus didn't waver, each command a calculated risk. Simon and Amy watched from the side, breath held, fists clenched. The simulated war raged from the crew's view. Fleets clashed, planets taken and retaken. Jack's tactics were daring, feints and strikes. Amy leaned into Simon, whispering fast. They made a plan, desperate to stop Jack's final play. The Cervantes strategist countered Jack's moves precisely. Virtual ships vanished in silent bursts. The tension spiked each moment. The battle peaked, fleets converging decisively. The strategist moved, Jack parried. Stalemate. Both held firm. Stillness settled as the stalemate was declared. The strategist nodded respectfully. Jack proven, mind acknowledged by all. But Jack looked to his crew. Their resolute eyes spoke louder than cheers. They had won, but no celebration came. The secret gambit hung unspoken. The crew left quietly. They looked to Jack, the man who'd led them through darkness and into the unknown beyond. "We stand together," Jack said, voice resolute echoing. The Cervantes' cold voice filled the ship, acknowledging the result. But the crew's solidarity mattered most within the Sovereign's walls. "We don't kill humans," Jack repeated, a quiet vow amid the soft ship hum. Jack walked down the cold halls of the Sovereign to the airlock. He swiped his ID. The door hissed open. The dark, massive Cervantes ship hovered outside against the stars. Jack's boots clanged on the steel ramp as he boarded their ship. Inside, the walls pulsed dim blue. A tall Cervantes envoy in shiny armor greeted Jack with a nod. It led him through winding halls to a huge room. The High Arbiter sat draped in shimmering robes. A glowing emblem marked the floor. The Arbiter's voice boomed, filling the room. "Colonel Jack Ransom of Earth, We've seen your people fight bravely. Let's discuss terms without more battles. Jack squared his shoulders, chin high. I came here ready to fight for humanity's place, not beg for it, he replied. The Arbiter studied him. Your determination is unique. We offer Earth protectorate status in our empire. You'll have our protection and technology. Jack's hands clenched to fists. With respect, we want autonomy. We've bled for the right to stand alone. Hear our story. He spoke of the Sovereign's crew, Simon's smarts, Amy's courage. He described the sweat and blood of stubborn humans refusing to yield. That's humanity's spirit, Jack finished. The Arbiter narrowed his eyes with interest. Intriguing. We propose a compromise. Earth will have temporary sovereignty, reviewed by our council. Prove yourselves in peace as you have in war. Jack paused, emotions crossing his face. The deal was no victory or defeat, but a chance for humanity. Back on the Sovereign, Amy and Simon waited in the briefing room. The rigid crew eyed Jack as he entered. Jack cleared his throat. The Cervantes have given us an opportunity, he began. A trial period of freedom. It has risks, but it's a chance for peace and growth. He looked around. We can walk this path together, as we've done through every trial. Simon nodded slowly. Amy's eyes shone with hope for a fresh start. Their unity reflected humanity's potential. Jack's voice carried through the ship's channels. The United Earth Forces listened as he spoke of autonomy and coming trials. Some called it surrender, others saw progress. But one thing was clear. Hope for Earth's future burned bright as the human spirit. A new era dawns, Jack's voice echoed. Let's step into it united. We don't kill humans, we survive. We thrive. Cheers roared in city streets. Jack, Amy, Simon waved from parade floats as cheering kids ran alongside. Painted flags waved, holoscreens played their heroics on loop. Amy grinned and high-fived, reaching hands. Simon gave thumbs up, reassuring the crowds. At podiums, mics carried their words. We beat the Cervantes together, Jack said, voice firm. But freedom is fragile. We must guard it. Crowds hushed, sensing his urgency. We'll prepare to defend Earth and be there for potential allies, Jack continued. Our struggle was shared. Let's remember that. Amy nodded agreement. Simon tapped a model base. Here we'll train for what's out there. They moved to bases, briefing rooms. Amy's commands echoed in sim bays. Recruits listened close. Simon led tech seminars, cadets scribbling as he took apart and rebuilt devices. At night, Jack stood at windows, stars reflecting in his eyes. Round table meetings held, nations' leaders present. Complacency is the enemy, Jack urged, voice low. Leaders signed accords, shook hands. Ships and stations took shape above and below. Jack's words played in classrooms. We survive. We thrive. We don't kill humans. Communications reached out to distant systems. Diplomats offered peace and partnership. On Sovereign's bridge, Jack watched. The crew stood steady, eyes forward. Earth's first steps as a galactic presence had begun. The control room went quiet as a message played from Cervantes. Their deep, proud voice now had desperation. They need help, Jack said. The Earth leaders sat with worry on their faces. No one spoke for a moment. The machines hummed. They're desperate if they ask us, Amy said. She leaned forward with tight hands. Simon paced by the table. He turned to the leaders. We can help them. This changes things. The leaders buzzed with disagreement. Thoughts of war haunted them. Proving human worth had cost them. Their pride still stung. We saw good and bad in the Cervantes, Jack said loudly. But we don't kill. We help. That's us. Murmurs grew. Heads nodded. Choices were made in silence. Let's show our best, Jack said. Scenes flashed. Shouting on ships, troops in armor, Earth and Cervantes together. Boots thudded as Jack, Amy, and Simon led the joint force. Ships slid into place with idle weapons. They met the Zyklon threat. Black Zyklon ships moved in the void. Pinpricks of stars shone far off. "We control this," Jack said on the bridge. His fingers danced on the strategy table. Lines and points marked paths and targets. Amy spoke fast to the soldiers. "Stay unpredictable. They won't know what hit them." Simon typed fast at his console. "Hacking their systems in 3, 2, 1. The Zyklon ships went dark. Chaos erupted. Lights flashed. Ships exploded. Human and Cervantes ships spiraled through enemy fire. The Zyklon had strength and aim. But the coalition was wild. Human unpredictability and Cervantes' strength clashed with the Zyklon. Jack commanded like a conductor. Each order brought a new strike, dodge, and win. His eyes stayed on the fight, a symphony of war. Together they pushed on. Ships danced destruction and strategy. Quiet remained among wrecked ships. Human and Cervantes floated together. Zyklon debris drifted past. Cervantes' voice rumbled gratitude over the radio. "Together, we won. Your tactics saved us." Jack nodded, weary but determined. Thoughts of "we don't kill humans" whispered inside. He looked at the fierce eyes of Amy and Simon. The news spread on screens across planets. Humanity rose to shield and save against a shared foe. Now Jack stood firm before the leaders. "We fought, we won, now we join the community." They nodded, sensing destiny. Earth reached further than before. Humbled, the Cervantes stood with Earth, looking to a future shaped by human hands. Together in darkness, they brought light. The Galactic Council chamber was cold and dark, filled with alien faces staring down at Jack and his crew. The room went silent as the towering Arbiter stood up. "Humans have proven themselves in defeating the Zyklon," his voice boomed. "We grant Earth full membership in the galactic community." Cheers erupted, echoing off the walls. Amy nodded at Jack, pride in her eyes. Simon carried his datapad, ready to build instead of destroy. "Earth is ready to join as equals," Jack said, his voice carrying across the chamber, "to help make a united galaxy." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. Back on Earth, the military headquarters was alive with activity. Screens showed humans training alongside aliens, and Earth's flag waved next to the Cervantes. In the strategy room, Jack and alien tacticians leaned over maps, planning defense and trade together. His reputation grew after the victory. Simon led workshops, guiding eager new recruits. Laughter filled the room as he connected species. His expertise shone bright. Amy met with diplomats, weaving alliances, her resilience legendary. Jack watched new diverse recruits train, remembering the hard-fought journey that led them here. He turned to the stars outside. "Our spirit got us here," he said aloud. "Our courage to step into the unknown." Amy joined him, also gazing upward. "Now we use that spirit to find peace." Simon approached and clapped Jack's back. "They never thought we'd shake things up like we did." The three stood shoulder to shoulder, etched with history and hope. Earth was no longer isolated, its destiny intertwined with 1,000 worlds. Its flag flew among the stars, showing the strength of the human spirit and calling for a brighter future.